Well, when the president did say that indeed there was going to be a refund to state over debiting them for Paris Club debt, and that they were to get a relief and a refund, you know, there was a lot of cries of hallelujah. However, now it's turned out that there was some consultation that happened in the process of getting that particular refund, and it turned out that there was also going to be some payments to be made in terms of consultancy. That raised some controversy amongst governors who said the amounts were highly debatable, and even the people who were supposed to have been given the work, you know, there were huge question marks around there, because this is a Paris debt club refund that happened over a period of how many years? I mean, this happened in the Paris Club debt was paid during the Obasanjo era, but the relief came during, as the refund came during the era of President Muhammadu Buhari. So you can imagine how many years we're talking about here. What has now happened is that the federal government has recognized the promissory notes, or has given the people who were said to have, you know, done this consultancy promissory notes to them to a tune of about $418 million, and that seems to be causing a lot of controversy within amongst governors, who are saying that it would seem that the federal government has been misled. However, we have two gentlemen here in the studio to help shed light into what exactly transpired. How did this figure come about, $418 million? What was the work that was done? What was the level of consultancy? And whether or not they should actually be getting these monies, whether the monies which has been promised them now by the federal government is actually due them. We have with us this morning Mr. George Uboh, who is one of the judgment creditor, and we also have with us Mr. Chris Nwaokobia, who is the convener of Country First Movement. Gentlemen, you're welcome. Well, Mr. George Uboh is also the CEO of Panic Alert Security Systems. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning.
Good morning, madam.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Well, I don't know, it was a pretty complicated, let's say, history to be tracing back, but we all remember the Paris Club debt, which President Obasanjo, you know, was able to secure, and that, you know, a lot of states were debited. I think the monies were debited from the federation account and paid back. But it turned out that a number of states were over debited. Now we are hearing that there's some controversy over the process that happened in trying to get the funds back to the state. You are one of the creditors. Can you tell us what exactly is causing controversy?
Okay. Well, first, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, my fellow Nigerians. I would plead with everyone to dispel any preconceived notion or narrative and listen without prejudice, because I'm in the thick of things. This is a democracy. Any democracy stands on a tripod. 3 co-equal branches, judiciary, executive, and legislative. Yes, the consultants involved, when the payments were dragging and went to court, and all of them got final court orders.
The consultants involved in what precisely?
Okay, very good. The consultants performed myriad of duties. In the case of Nwaokobia, you cannot have the governors getting their money without Ned's job, because it's part of the consultancy I did. He, in his wisdom, found out that there were illegal deductions, so his company, his firm, Linus, took federal government to court. So he was the one that actually got the 3.1 billion US dollars, you know, the entire judgment, and his consultancy is 20%. Now, my consultancy was to look into this whole thing.
He was the one who found out that the state had been over.
Yeah, not only finding out,
debited.
He had to go to court. I mean, it was a protracted. He went to court, litigated it. Judgment came down December 2013. I was engaged June 2014 to even look into the judgment, the propriety of the judgment. and I found some shenanigans.
Engaged by who?
By the Nigerian Governors Forum. I have all the documents here to, I'll leave it with you. And when I looked into the judgment, of course, the issue of the 20%, that he did a very good job, and it was clear he was given consultancy to be paid 20%. I found out that 15% of the $3.1 billion judgment was awarded to a company that was not really party to the suit. You don't need to be an attorney to comprehend that. You can't come during the judgment phase to benefit when you were not a party, to the suit. And that it was very difficult for me because the fellow, may so rest in peace, was Captain Hosa, Wells Procurement. And my security company was actually securing his home too. So there was this ambivalence. And he was livid initially. But, this whole thing, even the judge involved, the judgment awarded the 15%. The Ganishi Nisi, the same thing. It was Ganishi absolute after Buhari came on board. I mean, the fear of, and of course, the pressure we put on the judge too. So the judge reversed that $478 million judgment. So that money was not paid by, it was not deducted again. So that was saved because the judge reversed it. Now, after all that, some covert job, I won't get into I will talk about the overt operations. I won't get into the judge was, arrested and all that. But the point is, when I approached, I'm talking for me now, when I approached the Governors Forum to pay me my money, there was this whole, normal, whatever. So I took them to court. But before I took them, while the matter was pending, during the pendency of the court action, in November 2018, the same Governors Forum wrote the Attorney General to pay me the 10% for the $7.8 million that I demanded. Now, I called the Attorney General December 2018. He was in Malaysia. He was very hard on me. He said, look, I'm not going to touch this. What is the situation with your case? I said, I'm in court. He said, until you finish the court issue, you should know better. I'm not going to touch it. So in April 2019, 2 days after my birthday is April 6, on April 8, the same Governors Forum, we entered into a consent judgment. Again, you don't need to be an attorney to know that when two parties that are fighting in court decide to consent to a judgment, and some of these judgments involved in this case are consent judgments too. So when they consented, then the issue was now ripe for the Attorney General to look into. Even then, the Attorney General's office still wrote the Governors Forum to reconfirm this whole process, the letter they wrote, the November 28th letter they wrote and everything. So if anything, the Attorney General has been way above board. And the president's, of course, the whole thing that the president is not obeying court orders and all that, he in his own wisdom too felt, hey, all court judgment, because of course, the PNID thing, let the federal government settle at this stage. Because when you have a court judgment and the Attorney General's letter, I think the July 12th letter, he mentioned it, the cost is far outweigh any benefit if you keep dragging this thing on.
It's interesting that you mentioned the PNID judgment, which has caused
exactly.
a lot
so
of
it's good to resolve it
and
earlier than make it a protracted thing. That is what people don't understand. Now, once you have a final court judgment, and these same Governors Forum, look, they were there when we were in court. They consented to it. So like in my case, what are you going to fault me for?
So what I'm trying to understand,
right.
and I don't think I understand very clearly,
right.
is first and foremost, I mean, what were you engaged for? You say that Mr. Ned Nwoko went to court on behalf of the Nigeria Governors Forum. Oh, he was the lawyer for the Nigeria. Is that what you're saying? He was the lawyer for the Nigeria Governors Forum. Is that what you're saying?
See, he challenged the illegal deduction, the particular deduction from...
On behalf of who?
On behalf of the local government. and by extension, of course, the governors.
Was he engaged by Algon?
I just said it. He was engaged by Algon. 20% consultancy.
Okay.
No upfront fee, but success. Once you're successful, you get 20%. And
Okay, so he was engaged by Algon.
Right.
He went on behalf of the local governments, but not the governors.
Well, this is the Secretary General of Algon that signed his engagement letter. So it's Algon, and by extension, you know, Algon, local governments, the state governments.
Well, I mean, the inference now is
but the Algon engaged him.
Okay.
Okay. Nigerian Governors Forum engaged me. But I think what you were asking is the work done. Or are you talking about the propriety of the engagement?
No, I'm talking about the work done. What was I'm
so
wondering why there will be a judgment and then you'll be invited to look through the judgment again, to review the judgment.
Well, if the judgment, you can't question anybody's engagement to do anything, because that will go into areas that what are you questioning? The Governors Forum, Nigerian Governors Forum, felt they should engage me, an anti-corruption crusader, to look into this. John, I found fraud in it, which I just mentioned to you, because 15% of the $3.1 billion judgment was awarded to a contractor who was not party to the suit. I still looked into Ned Nwoko's issue. I found, there was nothing wrong there, and my report cleared him, to be paid.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I don't know what you make of this, Chris. This is what came out to the public. I mean,
right.
A lot of the headlines, I think the biggest one we saw was on the part of Premium Times and a few other newspapers. Yes.
This day inclusive.
Indeed. And they had this one, Buhari ignores governor's call for audits, because we've seen the governors asking for a forensic audit, approves payment of $418 million, suspicious debt. That's how they've tagged it.
But the same President Buhari approved money for the governors in 2016, if you recall. He approved it is over $86 million and over 17 billion naira.
In bailout.
Hold on. You see,
no, I have to clarify.
The governors are saying that.
I want to clarify if it's the bailout funds.
Yeah, it's the same fund. The governors are saying that.
If you're referring to the bailout funds, let me quickly come. We'll come to the bailout funds. Let him quickly intervene.
Mokwe, my intervention will be predicated on two fundamental quotes of my mentor, Martin Luther King Jr. He said that an individual has not started living until he can rise above the narrow confines of his individualistic demands to the broader concerns of humanity. And then he went further to say that true compassion is not in tossing a coin at the beggar, but ensuring that the edifiers that churns out beggars will pull down. I want to say clearly that did some people do jobs for the Governors Forum and then by extension the local governments and the likes? Did they do jobs? Yes, jobs were done. Do they deserve some payment? Yes, perhaps. But what the governors are saying is that at this point in our national life, you must audit. We're talking about NDDC and forensic audit. And you saw how about 6 trillion naira has been fleeced by certain contractors and consultants. I am here because, like my brother, I care about our country. If he was one of the consultants, and then my brother Ned Nwoko was one of the other consultants, and they did certain things for government. Mokwe, you remember the Pentascope deal and judgments gotten against the federal government of Nigeria? They got judgments. But when the Nigerian government, and indeed the Attorney General, looked at the papers and found out that certain figures were untoward, they decided to petition the judgment, and they went back to court. Now, what the governors are saying is, Mokwe, look at the figures. $418 million as payment to consultants. $418 million is over 100 billion naira. Mokwe, as you and I talk, resident doctors are on strike for figures far less than that. As you and I talk, ASU is asking for only about 120 billion to effectively go back to school. They're threatening a strike, perhaps from tomorrow. As you and I talk, government is looking for funds to fund infrastructure. And then a few individuals as consultants, mark my use of words, are saying that government is owing them $418 million as consultancy fee. What the governors are saying is, oh, we're not against you, but we want a forensic audit. And then the local governments, as it were, that were said to have engaged these consultants are saying that, oh, this is not just about, there are certain contracts that were supposed to have been executed, and that some of these contracts were not executed. And so this gamut of judgment debt, that there's about $418 million, cuts across several strata of their engagement, and that they do not think that this $480 million should be paid without forensic audit. The governors are saying the same thing, Mokwe. And then in February, whilst the vice president was acting as the president of the Federal Republic, and at the Council of State meeting, he said that he totally aligns with the fact, the call of the governors for an audit. And the pride of this administration is anti-corruption, due process. Now, what we are saying as a people is that rather than just jump into paying these debts, what is wrong with a forensic audit? If you're saying that with respect to other payments that Nigeria was indebted to and judgment gotten, that you can do a forensic audit, why are people uncomfortable with the call for a forensic audit? At this point in our country, we need money to cover a whole lot of things. And the Governors Forum, and indeed the masses of our people, are saying that simply what is needed at this point is verify, validate, interrogate this humongous figure. You don't throw $480 million into a few hands in the name of a judgment.
Now,
Why not interrogate
I'll ask
it?
Mr. Uboh very soon whether or not, you know, he has any, you know, misgivings with a forensic audit. But are you begrudging them? I mean, if somebody identified a loophole somewhere and, you know, was smart enough to say, this is a potential problem, this is what I can potentially help you get back. You know, and if I'm able to, you don't even have to pay me. If I'm able to help you get it, you will give me this much percentage. Will you begrudge him, you know, his business savvy?
Let me say this clearly. It doesn't happen anywhere in the world. The way we do our things here, go to the United States of America, look at how these things are prorated. It is just unfortunate that we live in it. That's why I started with the quote by Martin Luther King Jr. An individual must rise above the narrow confines of his individualistic demands to the broader concerns of humanity. 20% of 1 trillion, for instance. Who does that? Where does that happen?
The question should be who agreed to it.
If those who agreed,
yes.
if those who agreed to it are saying that they need to have a forensic audit to know what level of job was done, what is wrong with that? That's exactly what nobody's saying, oh, you didn't do any job. What they're saying is $418 million is too large for what jobs you did. And I'll give you an instance. When Nigeria was taken to court over the Pentascope deal, certain monies were approved in the United Kingdom. And then what happened? The Nigerian government under this present administration said, oh no, this is humongous, we can't do that. And they went back to court. What the governors are simply saying is, oh, we're not opposed to, we're not saying you didn't do anything at all. What they're saying is $418 million at this point to a few hands, we need a forensic audit. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
Well, I'll come back to you shortly, but, you know, this is the call that the governors have made. And that's what they were still dealing with until we now heard that, oh, the Federal Ministry of Finance has handed the judgment creditors promissory notes. First and foremost, do you have promissory notes from the federal government?
I won't answer that. Let me go into what my dear brother
here said.
I mean, I won't answer that. Let me go into what.
So I'll take that as a yes.
I have not been handed promissory notice in the process. If I have, it would have been reported. All they are saying is that the process is in place. But the point is, my dear brother here, you know, I don't want this to be like it's something based on sentiment. You hit the nail on the head. The governor, Algon engaged Nwaokobia. The governors should be kissing Ned on both cheeks. Because without him going to court, he wouldn't have even had the money in the first place. So why would you now have a problem paying him? You have been paying him before. This is not the first payment he's getting. So why are we shifting the goalposts? In my case, regardless of what anybody thinks of what I did, nobody can indict me on anything, because an engagement letter was given to me. The same party that gave, the organization that gave me engagement letter, wrote a letter to the Attorney General to pay me. Attorney General didn't want it. He even wrote back and said, hey, reconfirm again. Then I have a consent judgment that they consented to. So what is the big deal?
So first and foremost,
so
I'll ask
if
you
you after consenting to these facts,
I'll ask you this.
Right.
One, are you afraid of a forensic audit?
No, you see, you don't, after getting judgment, you now come back again. You see, you need to understand how things work. You know, just like the Attorney General said, am I going to sit down after I've gotten judgment, after the necessary tools have been put in place, the President has approved, Chief of Staff, the Minister of Finance, DMO, Attorney General have all put their hands on paper to pay me? Then if you delay, then there are going to be costs involved. More money is going to balloon. So the point is, why didn't they do this forensic before? You were in court with me, you settled out, you consented to a judgment with, with me. The governors are probating and reprobating. You understand?
Well,
so
the governors have also maintained, especially under the Nigeria Governors Forum, that
right.
there was no time at any point in time when the Nigeria Governors Forum engaged you to do this job on behalf of them.
Okay, fine. If that is their position verbally, the document speaks to the contrary. And if there is no document to that, and they consented to it in court, see, this thing is becoming moronic, because you are saying one thing, and you have done a different thing. You consented, I went to court as your consultant. You never posited in court that I'm not your consultant. What you did was to consent to a judgment. So are you saying that the governors' firm don't have a legal department or lawyers that represented?
Let me use the timeline that you gave. I think you said you were engaged by the Nigeria Governors Forum sometime in 2014.
Yeah, everything is. I'll drop it for you.
Is that correct?
Right.
That was also about the same time that there was some controversy within the Nigeria Governors Forum, and it was factionalized. Do you remember?
Yeah, I'm very much. It's the junk faction that engaged me. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
So it is a faction of the Nigeria Governors Forum that engaged you at the point when they were in a crisis.
Sure.
So if that is the situation, can we really say that it was the Nigeria Governors Forum that sits today that engaged you?
See, we don't want to get into these technicalities, because when I was doing job for them, there was no issue of a factional, or I don't know the word, the crystal. The Governors Forum engaged me. They benefited from my services. When they now sanitized the Governors Forum, was when I made my demand to the person that signed my, the faction you had, the Okaro, you had Naiwu. And when I made my demand, they had come together anyway, and they looked at it. Even the letter, the November 28, 2018 letter Okaro signed to Malami to pay me, he did mention that it was a junk faction that engaged me, but he didn't use that as a dispositive statement that I shouldn't be paid. So when you acquiesce to all these facts, I mean, he mentioned in passing, but he still recommended that I be paid. Then we went to court. He consented to judgment. We signed TOS, terms of settlement, consented to judgment. Even after that, the ministry, the Attorney General's office wrote him, Dayo Akpata wrote him again, please reconfirm the November 28 letter. He reconfirmed and said, we don't, based on the terms of settlement, the consent judgment, we are recommending him for payment.
Well, you're saying that there are documents to the effect that you were recommended for payment by all, the totality of the Nigerian Governors Forum.
The recommendation came in 2019. That is all of everything I'm talking about is, the engagement was 2014. They wrote a letter 2018 when they all came together November, entered into a consent judgment April 2019. December 2019, Solicitor General wrote to Attorney General's office for them to reconfirm. 2019 December. 2010 January 10, the Governors Forum again wrote and said, we have no problem, no objection, we are recommending him for payment. Based on that, the Attorney General wrote, I think, the May 14 letter to the Minister of Finance before he wrote the August one. So, look, when people that are dispassionate look into this matter, both the President the Chief of Staff Gambari, Attorney General Malami, Minister of Finance Ahmed, DMO Oniga, I think is her name.
Debt Management Office.
Yeah, of the DG. All of them will come out smelling like roses, because if anything, this matter went through the crucibles of due process. Final, if as we speak, as the Attorney General recognized, there is any court order invalidating then they have a case.
Well, some people will say that, we don't know how this matter is going to be resolved. I mean, this is now out in the public.
I'm leaving all this with you.
Okay, we do not know whether or not, I mean, the promissory notice, which he says they're in the process of getting now, is going to materialize into payment, or whether or not the federal government is going to, undertake the forensic audit. But what lessons can we learn? Because it would seem that right now the governors are crying over spilt milk, and this is not the first time we're saying it. I mean, Nigerians are also wondering what sort of consultants, and they're not begrudging the work that you've done, but then there'll be huge questions as to what sort of work it is. People, of course, will either be looking to learn from you,
exactly,
or they'll be looking to question their government in terms of, are they getting careless? Or because this is the time, as he rightly pointed out, where we're looking for funds to do all manner of things, and it would seem that the federal government and the states, especially the states, are cash-strapped. What lessons do you think we can learn?
Cash-strapped, but this matter involves them getting money, though.
Let me say that I understand the position of my brother here, but there's something he's overlooking. Again, that takes me to John F. Kennedy. He said, my countrymen, think not what your country can do for you, but think what you can do for your country. Yes, we agree that you have done something, but here, certain individuals engaged these consultants, and the ARGON, the Association of Local Government, are saying simply that some of these claims are spurious, and so we want them reinvestigated. We want the forensic.
Oh, even
that's
Argon,
one. Argon is part of it, yes. Then the governors are saying, we want these claims investigated. We want the forensic. Now, what they're simply saying is not, oh, you didn't do it. They're not saying you didn't do any job. I'm not going to go to the morality of whether it was Jang faction or Amechi faction that got anybody on board. What we're saying, and indeed what is tried proper and right, is the way we've gone with NDDC, allow the forensic. If in your dealing with other companies outside Nigeria, the federal government has had to say, we won't pay these monies decreed by a United Kingdom court because we doubt the propriety or otherwise of the whole protocol. Now, what is wrong with the governors and indeed the ARGON saying, we want the forensic? I think that the time has come for us as a government to look at how things work. The Auditor General's office, the Accountant General's office, that's going directly to your question. We must check our legal protocol as to how these things happen. In other climes, you have prorated percentage for consultancy. You could just say 20% for the first 100 million, and then 1% for any extra cost on the first 100 million. That way, individuals do not fleece their country. That way, you do not come to say, oh, I got a judgment debt of 200 trillion, and my percentage is 20%. Unfortunately, if we allow that kind of situation, what we are going to have, Mokwe, is people will leave schools and begin to think about printing cards and letterheads as consultants, because that becomes a new cash cow in our nation. So what we're saying is, nobody's saying, okay, don't pay them at all. What we're saying is that the time has come for us to walk the talk about this government being concerned about anti-corruption. The time has come for us to walk the talk about due process, and the time has come for our dear president and indeed all those who, don't forget that the vice president is a seasoned attorney. He's a senior advocate of Nigeria, and he has said that he is on all fours with the call by the governors for an audit.
Well, we'll see
I think that the time has come for us to audit this process and ensure that monies needed for other things in this country are not paid to certain individuals.
We'll see how this eventually pans out, because this is still a matter on the front burner for governors. They are still, they're still debating this amount of money. They're still calling for the forensic audit, and we also see that moves are being made on the parts of the federal government to ensure that you get, because there have also been questions as to whether or not, our state respects the laws, especially when judgment has been given in terms of giving, paying people what is due them. I mean, there's also controversy. It would seem that it's a delicate balancing act.
What is right is right, Mokwe.
In terms of people getting what is due them. But let us see how matters eventually pan out. We have to thank both of you for coming. Hopefully, if we need to, you wouldn't shy away from our studios. Thank you so much for coming on this morning. Mr. George Uboh is the CEO of Panic Alert Security Systems and also a judgment creditor. And Mr. Chris Nwaokobia is the convener of Country First Movement. Well, we're not going to finish before we take your mails. Let's take a few of them. Oladayo Awodele has this one on the $418 million Paris Club refund controversy. He said 20% consultancy fees is quite high. No consultant on engineering and building projects gets such. Well, that's what Oladayo is saying this morning.
Well, Henry says, talking about the Kaduna LG elections, the claim that e-voting machine can print out results, feed the server, and act as a backup for manual voting has proved that the National Assembly erred during the passage of the Electoral Bill 2020. Our selective phobia for beneficial technology confirms once again, under our development, Nigerians should resolve to confront our demons that have set us backwards and embrace true change.
Just to reference Samuel Oluwagbenga's mail on this conversation on the refund, saying that money should have been paid to Nigerians using BVNs. Anyway, but that's aside. This next one from Uzoigwe Friday on the Kaduna LG election, saying, I am happy with the disposition of the Kaduna State Governor on the recent elections in Kaduna. He has a belief that the people's vote should count, and he seems to encourage electronic voting. If our leaders could have the same disposition, Nigeria will be better by 2023, election-wise.
And this one is from Olagunjo Oladele. Says most countries in Europe have moved from electronic voting back to paper ballots. The reason is that paper ballots can be audited, they can be recounted, and they can't be hacked. I do not trust electronic voting, whether it uses blockchain or any other technology. These methods are secure in theory, but they rely on trusting the ones who implement them. Both should be competent and well-intentioned. I'm not trying to be cynical, but to the best of my knowledge, we do not have the technical knowledge to face these challenges. And Kamaldeen Adela was talking also about developments in Kaduna. Says the situation all over the world points to the fact that for effective and efficient service delivery, the states must resolve to firmly apply the rule of law and deploy technology in all ramifications as much as feasible. There is no other way out for now. We just have to be sincere in public service delivery, and I don't think anyone can quarrel with that. Whether or not you decide to deploy technology, sincerity is extremely important in all that we do. Thank you for watching this morning. I'm Nwaokobia Yusuf.
I'm Kayode Okikelu.
I'm Chamberlain, sir. Goodbye.